Are you looking for inspiration, peace, and a deeper connection with your soul? If you're ready to investigate your higher truth, take a deeper look inside, and discover a better way to live, stay tuned for Higher Soul Living, where we ignite your divine intelligence for life. With me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. I experienced a profound spiritual awakening that was so life-changing. It took me into a 30-year career as a metaphysical life coach and breathwork expert. I've mentored thousands of people through their personal challenges, anxiety, self-doubt, and search for meaning. Higher Soul Living is about choosing to live the higher way. It's about taking conscious ownership and drawing spiritual intelligence into your everyday life. Join me on a search for higher truth to find hope, connection, and happiness. The Higher Soul Living Show starts now. Hello, everybody. This is Reverend Christine. Today, we are going to speak about a subject that people find really, really fascinating. And it stimulates some really interesting debates with people. Very interesting debates. Some people even get quite caught up in it. Others are, I don't know. So these types of debates that people get into, they're quite good because they can massage the mind, loosen it up, and create an opening for new possibilities. So today's subject is past lives. Is it fiction or is it fact? Is it fiction or is it fact? What do you believe? Do you believe in past lives? Do you believe in life after death? Do you believe in reincarnation? These subjects trigger interesting discussions. So today we're just going to stick with past lives. And there will be one coming up on life after death and reincarnation and all those sorts of subjects that we're sort of we head in that direction. Oh, I'm not sure if I believe it. What if it's not true? I don't know. But you know that probably 2/3 of the world do believe in reincarnation. So it's an interesting one. And you're going to have to please excuse my voice. That flu that I had weeks ago that I mentioned on the last podcast, I've still got the cough and a funny voice, so it keeps going on me. So please bear with me. So what do you think? Do you think there are past lives? What is your personal belief? And we're not making anything right or wrong. We're just opening up this subject. So one of the questions I always ask every client that comes into my clinic, do you believe in past lives? It's one of the questions I do on my sheet. And so many people do believe in past lives, but a lot of people don't like to say, yes, I do, because they feel a bit funny about it. And a lot of people say they absolutely do not believe in past lives. They believe that you live and then you die and that's it. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. But the whole of the majority of people that I do see do actually believe in past lives. They believe that they have lived before. Some believe they've lived many times. So the main thing, just want to really qualify this, the main thing about past lives is that it frees up your current life in some way. There's a healing or an insight, something that happens for you, or a symptom that disappears, something that happens for you in this current life. So a lot of people like to go into past lives as sort of a bit of fun and experiment, that sort of thing. But really, it's about healing this current life. So if you do happen to access what I would call a past life, you could call it anything you like. As long as there's a healing from it, it's done its job. It's really done its job. So past lives, you know, maybe it can bring a new understanding, a mental, aha, I get it. I get why this is happening to me. It can bring emotional relief, and very often the physical symptoms disappear. It might take more than one session for that to happen, but it certainly can happen. So today I have some true stories to share with you. A couple of my own. In fact, I think I've only popped one quick one of my own in. There are just so many stories over 30 odd years. So I'm going to start with my very first experience. Now, this one's not all that exciting, but it was my very first experience of something else which I did not understand at the time. So when I had this experience, I'd never heard of past lives. And I was quite young. And I was laying in bed in that nice sort of drifty, relaxed state. And suddenly I was watching this elderly woman, very old woman in a wheelchair. And it was a heavy, one of those really sort of 1980s heavy iron wheelchairs. I presume 1980s, that's how it felt, but it was quite heavy. And she was sitting on a cliff and she was overlooking the sea. And I was watching her, but I could also feel her. And I thought it was really odd. And she felt, as she was looking at the sea, she felt there was this sense of freedom, this sense of absolute happiness. Like she loved the sea. She loved that vastness looking out over the horizon. And she was just sitting there, just watching the sea. And I knew that she needed help in that chair to get to the top of the cliff. And she had to rely on other people to help her, which she didn't like. But she had to. There was no other way. And the chair was very heavy. So it was very real. And I said to myself, I know this woman. It's as if it's me. It's as if I'm her. And I did not understand it. And that was the end of that first part. But my journey with this woman continued. It just continued over other times. And it always came in when I was in that really relaxed state. Now, with that woman, she had always been in a chair. I knew she was born, I don't know whether she was born like that or from very young, she was in this wheelchair. So she was very used to it. And she had the thing that I really, really noticed about this was her mother. She had the most wonderful, loving, kind mother. Her mother would stand behind her chair and she would brush her hair until it shined. Every day she would just do this. And I could feel all this love from the mother going into this woman. Now, the woman in the chair, she did not like to be a burden to anybody. And the thing that I did notice, even though I really had no idea what was going on with this lifetime, I carried this in my current life. I do not like to be dependent on anyone or be a burden to anyone. Fiercely independent I am. So I've carried that in. I don't like to be dependent on anyone. The other thing that I brought in is my love of the beach, just standing there and walking along the beach, that vastness in the horizon. I've lived near the beach for approximately 40 years now, and I love the beach. I don't think I could ever live away from it. And it's my go-to, when we're processing things, it brings me a sense of peace, joy, like a freedom, and I really love it. And this woman had the same feeling. And she lived a really simple life and a very happy life. So I knew this woman intimately. I just knew I was her, even though I didn't understand it until years later, actually. So now I'm going to head into some client stories. Now, some of these client stories are fascinating. I don't think we'll have time for a lot, but I hope to get 3 out before we finish today. So there are literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of client past life experiences that I've worked with these people over the last 31 years. So Tim, let's go to Tim. So Tim came to me suffering from anxiety, really serious anxiety, and an irrational fear that his mother was going to die. So he told me that as a young child, he would run home from school expecting to find his mother dead. And he had this absolute dread. And this followed him right through his school years. And now he's in his 20s and he still had this fear. It still persisted. Now, during his breathwork session, he accessed a time where he could see a woman in labour. He was watching her. And I asked him some questions just to share what he was seeing. And he said, "It's my mother," with this sort of question in his voice and a bit of like shock. And I asked him if it was his mother now. And he said, "No, no, it's not my mother. It's not the mother I have now, but it's my mother. This is my mother." So I knew at that point that he had entered a different time frame. We can just call it that, a different time frame, really. If you don't like the word past life, some people will, some people won't. But it's something that's going on internally. It feels very real. I asked him what was happening, and he was telling me that this woman was in labour and it wasn't going well. There were complications. And he started to get really, really emotional. He started to cry. So when he settled a little bit, I asked him what was actually happening. And he said, "My mother died. My mother died giving birth to me." And then he was very emotional again for a while. And then he said he instantly understood why he had this fear of his current mother dying in this life that he was living right now. That fear, that terror had haunted him his whole life. He'd brought it in with him. He'd brought that memory into him, into his current life. That emotional trauma was still playing out in his life. So he felt this incredible relief and freedom from this experience. And he could really work with it and let it go bit by bit. So he got a wonderful insight that gave him a freedom, which was wonderful. So Tim went off very happy. He also did some of my courses, the breathing shift and the art of meditation, and practices that every day. And 4 months later, he reports a huge change in his anxiety. It's gone right down. He feels centered, he feels balanced. He said his creativity has opened up and he's more confident and he's happier with himself. So he's doing really well. So those new skills he got from the 2 courses, if you have anxiety, the breathing shift is the first one I'd be doing, and the art of meditation. So that's what I learned years ago, or I developed for myself, and I've talked to thousands of people with anxiety. So releasing that past life for him, or bringing it to the forefront from his unconscious or subconscious mind to the forefront, and actually having those memories or parts of that memory in his conscious mind enabled him to understand what was going on and to start clearing it, coupled with his new practices of breathing and meditation on a daily basis. So we're going to go now to Kirsty. Now, this session was many, many years ago, but it's incredibly interesting. At the time, Kirsty was in her early 30s and she had a problem with her wrists. And she said they ached constantly, just constantly. She couldn't remember a time when they didn't ache. And she'd had lots of tests over the years, but they couldn't find anything wrong with her, ever. So during her session, her breathwork session, she entered a different realm and she said she could see a slave. She was sort of looking down on a slave. And I asked her to tell me what she was seeing and what she noticed around her, what was actually happening. And she said, "I can see this slave, and the slave is chained up with many other slaves. They were all chained together. And they were sort of in this corral type of environment." And she said it was terrifying. They were all going to be sold off. And she was emotionally deeply, deeply upset, deeply emotional. She said that they were treated like animals. And as she talked to me about what was happening, a remarkable thing happened. And I had never seen this before at the time. As she shared what the chains were like on her body, how they were digging into her and the heaviness of them. And actual physical bruising started to happen on her wrists. They turned like a bluish purple colour, and there were chain marks, literal like imprints of chain marks appeared on her wrists. How's that? Actual physical bruising and chain marks appeared on her wrists. Now, I understand that now, that it's the cellular memory is so strong in her body, it's surfaced. It's surfaced in her physical body in this lifetime. And the memory was so traumatic for her from that other time frame, and it was still living very powerfully in her body. Now, this was the first time, she said it's the first time she had seen herself any bruising or these chain marks in her wrist. I got her to open her eyes and have a look at it, because she said she'd never had that before. But what she experienced in her day-to-day life was this incredible depth of aching that no one could ever find the issue to. And you can understand why tests wouldn't have found it, because it was living in the unconscious memory. Now, I've seen this type of thing many times now over the years, particularly like a reenactment that the body goes into certain positions that when the trauma happened to them initially, the body will reenact that so it starts to release it. It's so fascinating. But the important thing here for Kirsty is that from that time forward, she has never had aching in her wrists. Not once. She has never had this aching since. Now, sometimes it can take 2, 3, 4 sessions to release something from the cellular memory that's embodied with that charge, that trauma. But from the very first session, she released that. And she also did my meditation course and was then still practicing 15 months after her daily meditation. And she said that a whole new world had opened up for her because she had no understanding of any of these things prior to having the experience in her breathwork session. And she, as far as I know, she's still an avid meditator today. So the power of entering past lives is, as I said before, is to solely clear the challenges that we have in this current life. It's not for entertainment, but for healing. It's for healing. Now we're going to move on to a very different experience with this particular lady, and her name is Heather. But I wrote an article about this, and with her permission, and I called it Tweedledum Tweedledee because Heather is an identical twin. So this is about the identical twin that I saw and her twin sister. And this is extraordinary, but in a very different way to the two that I have shared with you so far. So Tweedledee and Tweedledum. This is what Tweedledee wrote about her session. So I'm reading her words. I'm reading Heather's words that she wrote. And I want to read that article to you. I got that. I'm not the greatest reader because I'm dyslexic. So bear with me and I'll do my best to read this, because I could tell the story as I have with the last two, but I really like to just read what she's written here. Tweedledee, Tweedledum, I heal you and you heal me. Like most people about to begin something new and unknown, I felt a little nervous about the breathwork day or breathwork session, but also very eager to release some of the stress and tension which had accumulated in my body over a very difficult previous year. The session went beyond any expectations I had. Sometime into it, I spontaneously regressed into another time frame. Christine helped me to explore that life, its mistakes and its experiences, which brought a great awareness of issues I'd been dealing with in this life. A fascinating experience. I ended the session feeling incredibly peaceful and loving and felt very close to my soul. These feelings lasted almost a week. It felt as though I was much closer to the essence of who I truly am. I guess the feeling has gone, I guess the feeling has now become a goal for me because now that I've had that, I want to experience it more consistently. People around me noticed a great change, but the biggest reaction was from my dog. She's always been exuberant when I return home from anywhere, ecstatically greeting me, as dogs do. However, when I returned home from the breathwork session, she didn't come near me and disappeared for 2 or 3 hours. I eventually called her and she edged up for a quick sniff before going again. The following evening, she approached me and sniffed me all over as if to confirm it was really me. It seemed that my energy field changed so dramatically during the breathing session that she had to get to know me again. I had my second breathing session on the date, blah, blah, blah. It was very different to the first. Being very physical in nature, I gained a very profound insight into a pattern that had played out over many years in my life and many lifetimes. I realized that I had chosen to have the painful childhood experiences I had in order to force myself into a situation where I must seek healing. The healing for this lifetime was necessary to heal the patterns I had repeated in so many previous lives. Having such a profound insight has given me greater clarity about my life. And this gets really interesting. When I returned home from the second breathwork session, one of my daughters exclaimed that my eyes were different. When I checked them in daylight, they had actually changed colour to blue-green and seemed deeper. My eyes have always been hazel with a muddy overtone. This muddiness actually left during the breathing session, leaving my eyes a much clearer green-blue. I've been very excited about this change, not only because I liked the colour better, but because it was a physical manifestation of a spiritual healing. And that's not all. The story continues. I have an identical twin living interstate, and we are very different. She has different beliefs about healing than me and has not done any healing work of a spiritual nature. She doesn't believe in it. But about 5 weeks later, I was chatting to her on the phone and mentioned that my eyes were different and I wanted to compare next time we were together, as identical twins do. Page 2. Okay. She immediately exclaimed that she'd visited, this is the twin sister, she exclaimed that she'd visited a makeup consultant 2 or 3 weeks earlier who had classified her eyes as blue-green. Now, when her sister argued that her eyes were hazel, a muddy hazel, the consultant showed her under lights, and sure enough, her eyes had also changed to become exactly the same colour as mine are now. It seems that whatever healing I did during the breathwork session, my sister also received. And then she's written, Christine will have to start charging me double. So believe it or not, as you heal, others around you also heal. It's not only a gift. This is me. I wrote this in the article, at the end of the article. So it's not only a gift to yourself, but to the people around you as well. We're all connected. If we heal ourselves, we also heal the planet, because we're not separate to each other. We're all connected. We are all one. We're all one energy. So it's so fascinating, these past lives. There are so many of them. I've got so many stories to tell you. We don't have a lot of time left, but if you have something that you are facing, I think I've mentioned to you about the man who came to me with incredible anxiety years ago. I'll tell this very, very quickly. And he said, I don't believe in anything you do, but I've had all the tests. I've been to doctor after doctor and no one can help me. And I wake up every night sweating with terrible, terrible anxiety and banging my head against the pillow, at the back of his head against the pillow, screaming out, no, 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 and just sweating profusely and feeling terrified. Anyway, he had ended up doing 10 sessions, which I like people to do. So he went through all of these sessions, but in the first 2 to 3 sessions, he accessed a different time frame in the 1400s, and he was a man and he was running through this sort of open glen, if you like, and there were men on horses chasing him. And he was captured and he was accused of doing something that he didn't do. So he was innocent. But they tied him to a big tree and they set that tree alight. And he was bound to the tree and the fire was coming up through him and he was banging his head on the back of the back of his head on the tree, screaming out, no, 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 as he passed out of that body in that lifetime. Now, after the first couple of sessions, he never had that, I call it a night terror, and it completely disappeared. So he never had it again. His anxiety levels came right down. And of course, he went on and continued to do more sessions because he was absolutely fascinated. Even though when he came, he said, I don't believe in anything you do and any of this stuff, it worked. So whether we believe it or not, again, the thing that's important is that we heal what is going on in our current life. Now, I don't have time to share some of my other fascinating stories, but I just wanted you to get a taste of this. And, I find in my clinic now, people don't go into past lives as much. They go into more spiritual experiences, which I'll talk about another time. It's very fascinating. So to close, I ask you, what's your conclusion? Are past lives true or not true? Are they fiction or are they fact? And I don't really think it matters so much. I really don't. As long as we get the healing in our current life, that's the most important thing. But I do say this, if you have dreams, if you have visions, if you have hunches, if you get a feeling about something, listen, because it will be telling you something. Even if you don't understand it at first, it will be telling you something. And that something just may be the answer to helping your current life. Because let's face it, we all have challenges. And sometimes they're so deep in that cellular memory and we don't understand them. But really listening to those hunches, those dreams, those visions, did I make that up? Was that real? Listen to those things because they are real and they can lead you into a freedom that is wonderful. I wish you many blessings. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Higher Soul Living, where you'll ignite your divine intelligence for life with me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. Join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more information and stories that inspire hope, possibilities, and a greater understanding of who you are at a higher soul level. Together we deepen the connection between the spiritual and the physical aspects of your being and align to your soul's innate intelligence. Metaphysics and the higher soul's journey are my greatest joy. I invite you to join our Facebook community, Soul Life Connection Group, and to visit my website, soullifeconnection.com, for more information about me, my programs, my coaching, and to tap into your higher soul's intelligence. I hope to see you next time.